All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Rally Cry by William R. Forstchen. William R. Forstchen. This is book #1 in an 8 to 9 book series called The Lost Regiment. Now, this book came out in 1990. I remember reading the first 2 volumes in this series back in the early 90s when I was really young. And I remember liking them, but then just they kind of dropped off my radar or something. And I just kind of forgot all about them until just recently I ran across this copy, so I bought it. And thought I'd give it a go, see if it held up and I enjoyed it as much as I remember enjoying it, and if I want to go ahead and purchase the rest of the series. So we shall see about that. Like I said, this is going to be if you guys want to buy these, this is going to be hard. They've been out of print for a long time. They were popular in the 90s, but then kind of just like vanished. Anyway, came out in 1990. Lost Regiment, #1. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I like this cover quite a bit. I really do enjoy the way that it was, the graphic design. I like how the Rally Cry has this weird font, and it's like embossed in gold. You can kind of see it glimmer. And then the illustration. It took me a minute to figure it out. And I compared it to the illustrations. I went online and looked at the illustration, because Rock Books is the publisher, and they were famous for never giving credit to the illustrators that illustrated their books. So it's not mentioned anywhere in the book who this illustrator is. But as I went online and looked at the covers for the other 8 or 9 books, it looks like it was the same illustrator did all the covers, and that illustrator was San Julian. I'm 95% certain that San Julian was the illustrator of this and the subsequent books in the series. Anyway, and I like the illustration. It's cool. It's got the Civil War hero up here, and then our alien creature, and then a battle between them. And so that's what we're going to get into, is what is this Lost Regiment all about? Okay, there's a foreword in this book where William R. Forstchen talks about how he kind of based this alternate universe sort of historical novel, fantasy, sci-fi thing on a real event of a regiment of Civil War soldiers that set out to sea and were lost and they never heard from again. So clearly the ship vanished, okay? So he's like, okay, well, I want to write a story about where they might have went. And his story, they go to this alternate universe. So the book starts out in 1865 in City Point, Virginia. We meet Captain Andrew Keene and his longtime warrior companion, Lieutenant Hans Schubert, who's a German. And these guys have been warriors together throughout the Civil War for quite a while. And then as I was reading through the book, as I was reading along, I kind of got the feeling, and I could be wrong, and if anybody's read this book and knows, I could be wrong, but I got the feeling that our main character, Captain Andrew Keene, was actually the author's version of Joshua Chamberlain, who was the hero at Gettysburg. Because the two characters, Hans and Andrew Keene, they talk a lot about their experiences at Gettysburg and how they were the heroes of Gettysburg. They belonged to the 35th Regiment of Maine, and we all know that the heroes of Gettysburg were from one of the regiments of Maine. I've been to Gettysburg. I've stood next to the Joshua Chamberlain statue, and so I think that this Andrew Keene is the author's way of saying he's basing this off of Joshua Chamberlain and that band of fighters that's won Gettysburg. Anyway, I might be wrong about that. So anyway, these guys set out on a ship, and the regiment, the 35th of Maine Regiment, they set out on a ship, and they vanish. But they wash ashore. They don't know that they vanished. They don't know that they're vanished because they come to a shore and they think it's North Carolina that they've reached. But they're met with a very interesting looking group of people who look like medieval peasants. In fact, not only do they look like medieval peasants, but there's like these guys in sort of makeshift, grubby, not very well put together medieval knight armor. And they're immediately attacked by this group. So the Civil War regiment is immediately attacked on the beach by this group of grubby looking peasants and knights. Well, the Civil War guys easily beat back the attacking horde because they've got guns and cannons, and they scare the out of the peasants and knights, who scatter like frightened bunnies, and they go back to their place. And now at this point, the our Lost Regiment decides we might not be in North Carolina. We don't know where we're at, but it certainly isn't North Carolina. And so they're trying to figure out what's up. Well, we get perspective, and I like the way that William Forstchen handled this book, because he gives us perspective from he gives us perspective from the Civil War regiment people, and then he gives us some perspectives from those grubby looking knights that tried to attack. And they're like, okay, we don't know who these soldiers are that suddenly showed up on our beach, but they got some weapons that kicked our ass. And maybe rather than attack them again, maybe we should make friends with them, because we need those weapons and we need those soldiers in a different fight that we've been fighting for hundreds of years. And that fight that they've been fighting for hundreds of years are against the evil Tugar people, who are basically like big Urukai looking ogre monsters that just kick the shit out of everybody. And they enslave humans. I mean, they enslave humans. They keep humans in cages. They breed humans just for human sacrifice. They're kind of the ultimate baddies of this alternate universe that our Civil War soldiers have entered. So we get the perspective from Rasner, who's a patriarch in this peasant society, and Ivor, who's one of the knights. And it seems to me, and it seems to the reader, and it seems to the Civil War soldiers, once they kind of start talking to this group, that they're Russians, that they have a very Russian feel to them. And so now the Civil War guys are starting to think, okay, we might be in an alternate universe. It's starting to dawn on them. And these Russians might have also actually come from Russia a long time ago, and they're in the alternate universe. And the alternate universe that they're in is ran by these really bad Tugar race of monsters. And then we get to see some perspectives from the monster side. This one guy named Musta, who is the Quath of the Tugar horde. So we get to see perspectives from Musta's side and the bad guy side. And so we get this whole hybrid universe of Civil War era, ancient medieval Russians, and weird Urukai-looking alien creatures, which you can kind of see one of them right there. And their big conflict. And what we get is a hybrid medieval/Civil War era community versus the Urukai, with a steampunkish flavor to it, because the Civil War era people bring in a lot of gunpowder and a little bit more modern advancement and weaponry that the other two groups haven't seen yet. And but it's steampunkish but grittier and brutal, and it's a pretty R-rated story. But even so, do the Russians and the Civil War era people come together, and will they be able to save themselves from the monsters? The monsters that breed humans for sacrifice. Will they be able to? And how will this work out? Well, this book is a grand start to that adventure, and we don't find out the answer to any of those questions, I imagine, until about 8 or 9 books later, when the thing wraps itself up. Because it looks like on the covers of all of the books, it's the Civil Wars guys, the Russian guys, and the Urukai guys just fighting it out and trying to. But this is really good. I was surprised at how much more I got out of it the second time, because when I was reading this in the early 90s, in 1990, when I first read this, I didn't remember jack squat about it. I remembered the Civil War guys and then the evil orc type guys. I'd forgotten all about the Russian guys, but and I think in subsequent volumes, maybe more people come into this alternate universe from different eras. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, because I only read 2 of them. But anyway, it's a damn good book. Reading this the second time and being an older person and being able to make the connection between Joshua Chamberlain of Gettysburg and then this made-up captain named Andrew Keene, who probably more than likely is actually Joshua Chamberlain, just the William Forstchen's version of that guy. Anyway, then there was a lot of other things I got out of it. So I think my enjoyment level actually went up. So I will give Rally Cry a solid 8.5 out of 10, and we shall see if I go ahead and buy the rest of the series.